Hey there, welcome to my channel, String Things by Mel. My name is Mel. I'm a stay-at-home mom living in Vancouver, Canada, and on my channel I chat and share everything about my knitting hobby. This is podcast episode 14, all things that happened in April 2023. So I have a full schedule of items to go over with you guys today. April has been a busy month. Knit and crochet wise, and it was also my birthday month. I turned 35 at the beginning of the month, and if you watch my video what I knit this week, that was filmed leading up, and the grand reveal was letting you guys know my age. So thank you to everyone who commented kind of with their guess on how old they thought I was. I enjoyed reading all of those. I'm always so curious about what age people think I am, how they base it on. Is it based on how I speak, how I dress? And as a viewer, you have a limited kind of window into, the Melissa. You have a limited window of who I am. That was so awkward. I'm sorry. Yes. Even at the ripe old age of 35, still awkward. No, 35 isn't that old. I still feel young. But yeah, it was just kind of the right time. I was in the right mood to make a more vlog style video. I can't predict how many more of those I'm going to make. For me, I really have to be in the exact right mood, ready to bring out the camera, more than once a day and then multiple days. So thank you to everyone who has watched that. And yeah, so let's get into the podcast episode. I have my first finished object to share is the Hannah Cardigan, which was my very first test knit. And today is Wednesday. It is the release day for the pattern. So congratulations. Happy release day, Sarah of Noelle Knits. I knit the size 2 to 3 years for my daughter Darcy. This I finished, I think, about a week before the deadline, which was great. Overall experience, great. I would happily test for Sarah again. She's focusing on children's knitwear designs. Again, also great for me because children's knits take less time than adult garment, and I've said in the past I was hesitant about signing up for test knits before for adult garments for things that I would wear because I'm a little bit more choosy, a little picky about what I wear. So, well, actually, I'm still worried about whether I would enjoy the finished object at the end. But when it comes to knitting for my daughter Darcy, I'm a little bit more flexible or experimental. And with dressing a toddler, it really is a bit of a toss-up whether she's going to wear it or not. So far, she's into not wanting to wear this, which, yeah, it kind of sucks, but it's okay. In terms of fit, it is a little bit oversized on her, which works out perfectly because if she does not wear it at all this spring, then hopefully it will still fit her for fall and winter. My garment did wash and block to the finished measurements as said in the pattern, but it does fit oversized on my daughter, and she is 2.5, but she's quite slender. She's like in this weird tall skinny phase because kids when they grow they're like stout and then they're skinny and then they're stout. So she's in her little string bean phase right now. So lengthwise it seems to look okay, but she doesn't quite fill it out. Mine is knit with some of my leftover cone yarn from Hulsgarn, and this is the super soft yarn, held double, and it's in the color Conquer. And I use buttons that I purchased from Dress Sew, which is local sewing fabric shop here in Vancouver. And they're just, I don't know if they're resin. They're definitely some sort of plastic. And they look like they have little broken bits of whatever in there. but I thought the colors in there worked really nicely. Darcy saw my button stash and she pointed out some pink buttons, which I totally would have gone with buttons that she picked out, except those buttons I have reserved for a future like pinkish purple cardigan I'll be making her. So I had to kind of hide those away and tell her I was going to use different buttons. So what more can I tell you about the Hannah cardigan? I've done half fisherman's rib before, so I felt the stitch pattern itself easy to do, easy to follow. There are links to videos on how to do the increase. Are there increases or is it decreases? I've already kind of wiped my mind clean of the process, specifically like the little details. But there are helpful links to different techniques for the cardigan. I personally really liked the layout of how the pattern is. But that, I can imagine being a designer, that must be so tricky to figure out how you're going to write out and present your pattern, because everyone has such different preferences on how they like to read a pattern. But for me, I liked the layout. Specifically how she put the special techniques in a separate side box, like in an actual box, so you knew like, oh, that's what I need to do for this pattern. And then her kind of abbreviations, instead of having a list, it was in a table or a chart at the end, which for me, like, charts and boxes stand out more and make me pay attention to them more, because I'm definitely a pattern reader who just kind of looks at it quickly and think I've got it all. So yeah, if I see too much text, I just gloss over it really quickly. I also feel like I've knit enough that if I come across something that perhaps I didn't read, I will just, like, I can fix it on the fly if I really need to. So Hannah cardigan pattern is out. Sarah of Noelle Knits. Last thing I'll say, that I knit with holding 2 strands of fingering weight held double, but there's also instructions if you want to just hold a single strand of DK, and then you can use make a different button band. So I did the double knit button band with the fingering weight yarn. Also instructions to do kind of more traditional ribbed button band as well. All right, next finished object happens to be another item that I had a deadline for. And yeah, it turns out April is the month of deadlines and knitting not for myself. But that's okay, because as I've said before, you know, I might hit a point where I don't have space in my wardrobe or my closet to knit more items for myself. So I need to add in some more kind of gift knits, palette cleansers perhaps as well, to kind of extend my knitting hobby. So the next little thing I want to show is another kind of children's item, but it's a little crochet guy. This is Otis. And the hat comes off. I hope the hat doesn't stretch out too much. So this is a gift for one of my sister's friends who lives in London. So my sister is going to be flying to London to give this guy to the little one. The pattern for Otis comes from the second Animal Friends of Pica book. And the designer name there, Schenkel. So here's the picture of the one in the book. And there's mine. So I did not use the same yarn as what's in the book, but I did stick with very similar colors because that's what my sister had requested. And throw the book down there. So I used the same yarn I used for Darcy's Tiger, which, oh, I'm in her room. I can just grab it right now. Okay, so here's Darcy's tiger, which is from the Knitted Wild Animals book. And little sloth. So both of these are made using the Sheep Cheese Stonewashed yarn. It's a cotton acrylic blend. It's a sport weight. I still use the same crochet hook size for this, even though the pattern is for worsted weight yarn. So you could imagine that the stitches would be really tight, and it actually works up to be quite a stiff animal. But this is still pretty tight stitches as well. So, and because the tension is pretty tight, I definitely had to take more breaks on this than I would knitting. Also, I find crochet is a lot more wrist work on, so my hand, or I guess my wrists, were getting a bit more sore. But fortunately, a crochet project like this takes a lot less time than a knitting project, so I don't feel like I overworked my hands as compared to when I say knit for like 2 hours straight or something like that. So it's just definitely one of those kind of projects you work in kind of short stints, for me anyways. And because Otis is for a little one who's, I think, is she 1? Maybe that's why my sister's going to London, because it's going to be her first birthday as well. Anyways, so the pattern suggests using safety eyes, which is what I have here on Darcy's tiger. So they're like little plastic eyes that kind of, they screw in, and then there's a little backing to prevent the little eye from coming out. But since little one is less than 3, so if a child is less or younger than 3, it's recommended to not use safety eyes. So I crocheted little circles and sewed on the eyes as tightly and as securely as I could. I definitely caught the crochet bug because I have already started another animal. So I'll show you in the whips, but I'll just mention it. I'm going to make another one as a gift, but I will show you when I get to the whips part. In terms of level of difficulty of this, I mean, I've done these so many times that I don't really look at the instructions too much in terms of, say, like how to start or how to finish, but those instructions are in the book. But again, I've done these so many times that I just kind of do my own thing, just check where the color changes are, and then, yeah, just kind of glance at the pattern here and there. But if you haven't done any of these animals before, there are instructions in the book for like magic loop. Is it called magic loop? No, now I'm getting my knitting and crochet terms mixed up. Magic ring, doing the color changes. Are there instructions for sewing on the arms and the legs? I can't remember if there are. My thing about crochet animals before, I used to always get hung up on sewing the parts onto the body, because when I first started out, I definitely did not learn a great technique. I would just kind of sew in, and I probably did more than what was really necessary. You don't have to go like crazy when you're attaching parts, as long as you have the right technique. Like the arm, it's gonna stay. I've never had any limbs come off of anything that I've made before, or at least no one's told me. So I've gifted a lot of these animals to my friends' kids, and none of them have asked for any repairs. All of Darcy's are fine, so you just got to find the right technique. And what I did is actually really similar to what you do for a knitted animal, which I think you call it mattress stitch. I think so. But following the kind of the V's, which kind of resemble the V's of a knit stitch, you kind of almost graft and sew on the parts that way. But what I'm trying to show is that I have used kind of a mattress stitch or a Kitchener stitch, really, to match the V shape of the crochet stitches and seam the arms and the legs to the body that way. So for the amount of yarn used for Otis, definitely have lots left over, and that's what happens with kind of any kind of animal, especially if there are multiple colors. So I had originally purchased 2 balls of the main sloth color, which is in Boulder Opal, and I used one. I almost used a whole ball though, so that was pretty good. So if you want to use the same yarn as me, you need 1 ball of the main color. And then I did have to buy 1 ball each of the other colors that I used. So there's this light color for the pom-pom. So obviously I only used it for the pom-pom, so I have lots of that one left. This yellow color, which, oh, so this one's called Crystal Quartz, and the yellow is called Beryl. Beryl as in like a gemstone. For this kind of nose facial feature area, I already had this color. I'm from the yarn for the giraffe that comes out of the same book as this tiger. Oh, I had to purchase the blue color, which I can't remember the name of, but obviously it's only used on the stripes, so lots of that one left over. So since I purchased 2 of this color, like I have enough yarn to make another Otis Sloth if I want to. So I just might, because he is so cute. And for the little fingers, so Otis is a 3-toed sloth, you know, 3. I used a lighter weight yarn, so I have some Sunday yarn left over in my stash. So I figured it's merino wool. I don't think this child has any sort of wool allergies, but hopefully not. But I just thought the color that I had was just perfect for his little toes and fingers. And it's the same Sunday yarn I used in my BLS sweater. And then it's actually also just some black Sunday yarn for the eyes and for his the embroidery on the nose and the mouth. But there you have it. There is Otis Sloth. Okay, so do we talk about whips next? I guess so. Yeah, let's do whips next. So because I had 2 deadlines I was working on for April, I really didn't touch my other whips. I did manage to work on these 2 that I'm about to share like in the video of what I knit this week, because I wasn't full gung-ho like I need to work on these 2 deadlines yet. But I'll show you my Friday tee because I have indeed made progress. It may not look like I've done anything, but I swear I have, guys. And let's see if I can find the spot. So I have a photo on Instagram, and I think on Instagram, so here's the underarm. I think on Instagram, I think it's about here where I was, and so I've knit, you know, quite a few more color changes. So that's kind of how I'm gauging it right now. So I have tried this on, and if I wanted to be Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, this is the perfect length for that. But as I do not want that cropped of a crop top, I gotta keep going. So yeah, it covers my bust and like my bra perfectly at this point. And the fit is really good. I was initially concerned about the neckline, so I had tried this on before I divided for the sleeves just to make sure the yoke depth was all good. And the neck was sitting really high on me, like standing up this way and not like down like a crew neck. But now that there's an actual like separation and underarm and more fabric, and you know, it's getting pulled down by, you know, wrapping around my body, The neckline is definitely a lot better, and I think after wash and block, it's gonna be where it sits on PetiteKnit herself in the sample photos. So that was something that I was worried about, but no longer worried about now since trying it on. And this is just something I pick up if I have enough light for TV knitting at night. This is what I'm working on, and happy to say that no wrist pain or hand pain, finger pain has come back. So I guess it really was just the initial starting on the smaller circumference needles. But the collage needles, I still really like them, and they're still really comfortable. My other whip, if you've been following along, then you probably guess which one it is. It's my, what I just keep calling my Noelle cardigan, and this is the Noelle Madara yarn in the color Sake. Mine is kind of like gray instead of, I know other people can find more like beige dye lots, but I think mine runs a little bit more gray, and that's okay. It's definitely cool toned. So in my video, what I knit this week, I was working on the sleeves for this. And since then, I have frogged both sleeves. So I briefly explained in that video that I had done the math to figure out the length and how many decreases to do to get to my preferred wrist circumference. And my math worked out perfectly. However, once I tried it on, and yes, given it was not blocked yet, but I tried it on and it was just so fitted. I mean, just imagine this shirt that I'm wearing, how it follows my arm. That is how my sleeves were fitting. They're also too long. I miscalculated the length of it. But they were just way too fitted. And it's not like it was uncomfortably tight. And had I been knitting with maybe like a sport weight or a fingering weight yarn and wanted that fitted look, yes, the sleeves would have been absolutely perfect. But given this is a worsted weight and I wanted some more ease, I just wasn't happy with the fit. So I decided to frog back quite a bit. I frogged all the way back to where my second decrease round was. I'll show you. I've already finished, like frogged and finished this sleeve. So imagine I frogged the whole sleeve down to here, and the underarm starts here. So pretty much the whole sleeve I frogged, and from this point just knit straight, no more decrease rounds, all the way into the cuff. And I am much happier with the fit of this, and when I reblock this, I think I'll gain maybe like a ½ inch in length or so, and it's going to relax. I did not bother washing or steaming out the ramen noodle mess that I had after frogging, because I figured I think it will block out enough, and because of this slightly slubby, thick, thin nature of the yarn, I'm okay if it doesn't block out completely, because the multicolorness of this kind of hides any kind of irregularities, but I also appreciate the irregularities that are already in this yarn. So I've already frogged and knit a new sleeve on this one, and then just yesterday I frogged the other sleeve, and I'm almost done. I think I have about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have about like 18 more rows to go, and then I get to do the cuff. Frogging it was fine. The yarn didn't really like stick too much together. There was like a couple of spots where I had to, intervene. But other than that, it's been fine. And I was kind of hung up on this project for a while because I'm going to do the double knit button band. However, I couldn't decide what buttons to use which meant I didn't know what size buttonhole to make, which meant I couldn't do the button band. It's one of those, like, yeah, you have to do things in a particular order. Oh yes, I should mention. So when I was making the neckline, I kind of screwed up. Well, experimented. In my last podcast episode, I explained how I started with an increase rate and didn't like it because it wasn't going to result in a deep enough V. And instead of frogging back, I just changed my increase rate and just kept going. So as I said in that video, I did adjust the shape of my V-neck by where I decided to pick up stitches for this. So inside you can see this is all the extra fabric. So instead of picking up stitches on the edge or close to the edge where you would normally do if you had the right increase rate all the way through, I've got all this extra fabric that I removed. And it's just going to fold in, and I've already done the pickup for all the stitches for the button band. I hope I've picked up at a good rate, like not too many stitches. So the tricky part about doing it this way was that I had to make sure that both sides were symmetrical. So I think I did a pretty good job, and I did use some stitch markers to mark out kind of sections on the slope of the V-neck, and I did do it in a way that I could repeat on the other side. So I knew what sort of increase rate I wanted, so that's kind of how I did the pickup. So from, let's see, is it here? Here is where the front of the cardigan is, and all the stitches are even, and then it decreases into the V on this side. So I did a particular like decrease rate here, and then there's another rate for these stitches, and then another rate to finish off into the neckline, top of the neck there, and then counted out how many stitches it was, and then made sure I did the same thing on the other side. So I hope it works out. If it doesn't, I will just have to frog everything and try it again. It's fine. I would rather frog multiple times and get something right than have to compromise. Just like with the sleeves, like, yeah, the sleeves could have worked out, but that's, you know, the beauty of knitting and being able to reuse material and like undo it and do it again. I really like that, and I really, I actually, like, I'm not afraid to frog. It's kind of fun, actually, to be able to experiment and try something. And, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least I tried. And I don't like to view it as time wasted or time lost. It's all, you know, time went into finding a shape or, you know, something that I liked. You know, turns out I didn't like that much of a tapered sleeve, but I knew that my math was right, so that was a good thing about that. And also, it was like theoretical, right? You did the math. The sleeve on paper seemed like it was going to work out, but once I got it on my body, I was like, oh, well, actually, I don't like that fit. So that is something I can keep in mind for the next time I kind of draft out my own sleeves. Okay, my final whip to share is the crochet animal that I mentioned earlier. And it's like really working out that I am recording in Darcy's room because I just grabbed another animal to show as a comparison. But I'm doing another Pica animal, and I am making this for Darcy's allergist because she is going to be going on mat leave, I think in July. But I am making a panda. So I have made one of these for Darcy. This is like a really big version of it because it's a bulky weight yarn that I used. So I am making a small version of Lola Panda. So Lola Panda comes from the first Pica book. And I've done maybe like 2 nap sessions of work on this. Maybe only 1. It's going by really quickly because it's much simpler than the Sloth. There are fewer color changes, and so it doesn't look like too much, but this is the start of the panda head. The issue I have with this one though, however, so I mentioned that I had a bunch of leftover yarn from the Sloth, and I also had leftover yarn from that tiger. So this is some of that leftover yarn. However, I think I'm going to be playing yarn chicken. I don't know if I'm going to have enough to finish the body. So that's kind of why my priority has shifted to see like how far I get with this, so that I still have time after. If I run out, I can order more before we see Darcy's doctor next. Because yeah, as she'll be going on mat leave, I don't know how else I'll be able to give her this gift, so definitely want to finish it for Darcy's next appointment. I hope I'm making sense today. I didn't realize I had so much to share, and I think acquisitions is going to be the bulk of it, because, well, it was my birthday month. I got birthday money, so naturally I spent it on some yarny goodness. So let's get into the acquisitions. All the stuff. Okay, in no particular order. You know what? I guess technically all the yarn for Otis Sloth counts as acquisitions because that was purchased this month as well. Ooh, lots of yarn this month. Okay, so the first one I'm going to share is Lion brand Fisherman's Wool, which is 100% pure virgin wool, the color that I have anyways. It's called Oatmeal. This has been something on my radar for quite some time. Always was curious about it. I kind of avoid buying from really big brands if I can. However, was very curious about this one. And not a knock on Lion Brand. I have a lot of Lion Brand woolies, but I was, you know, since switching to purchasing 100% animal fiber yarns, Lion Brand doesn't have as much. I mean, well, I'm holding 100% animal fiber yarn. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I wanted to explore other brands. So here it is. This is the color Oatmeal. It's, I guess, a grayish. Is it a warm gray? I feel like my camera makes it look a little bit cooler than it is in person. I bought this yarn to either make a knit hoodie. I have the pattern for the Clubhouse Raglan hoodie from Two of Wands. I have made that hoodie before, but I used all acrylic yarn, and I think it was like one of my first knits I had ever made, and so I didn't really know that I wouldn't like the feeling of that acrylic yarn, so I ended up donating that hoodie. But the pattern was great, hoodie turned out great, fit me, just didn't like the yarn I used. So I have bought this to either make one of those or a Semper v-neck sweater. I know a hoodie and a v-neck are like very two different things, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to go through and decide which I want more in my wardrobe and in this color. And I am now leaning towards more of the Semper v-neck, also because I would love to do another Knit Purl Girl pattern. Because Sophie's very thorough. Her patterns are detailed, and I think I'd get more wear out of a v-neck. So I really enjoyed the fit of my Biella sweater, how nice and close fitting that is. So I'd like to use another Sophie pattern to get a nice close fitting v-neck if I can. Also because I'm limiting myself to using only 2 of these skeins. So each of these are 425 meters. So I have 2 to use. I have no idea if that's going to be enough for a Semper v-neck. I actually don't even know the weight of yarn that's used, but I can do some math magic to figure out if whatever my gauge ends up being is going to work for that. So I do have more though of this yarn. I also purchased 3 additional skeins because way back I mentioned that I wanted to do a Moby sweater for myself, the Moby sweater from PetiteKnit, and I actually shared the swatch made using this yarn from Cascade. And I was going to hold this with some lace, mohair alpaca mix that I have, a lace strand. But, you know, so much time has passed and I've rethought about this that I don't think I want a Moby sweater in this color anymore. I still like this color, but this color doesn't speak Moby to me anymore, if that makes any sense. I think I would get more wear out of that textured pattern if it was in an even more neutral color. So I have 3 of these that I'm reserving for a Moby sweater. And I'm not going to hold it with a strand of anything else. I just want it to be pure wooliness, no fluffy halo. So we'll see. I'm going to have to obviously do a gauge watch and see if that's going to work. And for this yarn, I am going to do something else. Another textured thing, but something else that I feel like the color speaks more to this design for me, which brings me to my next acquisition. So I actually went in person to a yarn shop. This is mentioned in my What I Knit This Week video. And while I was there at Urban Yarns, which is a little yarn shop on the west side of Vancouver, I picked up not 1, but 2 Sanus Garn booklets. And I felt really lucky to get these, and for the price too. For some reason I thought these were more expensive. So these were $15.95 each. I bought these 2. And I guess at other places you need to order yarn in order to get a booklet, from my understanding. These are just booklets you can buy individually at Urban Yarns. You don't have to buy any Sanus Garn yarn, so that's nice. And I've seen these online at other shops back when I wasn't into shopping in person, but the shipping cost didn't justify buying just a booklet, and I swear the booklet was more expensive. I don't know. I could be wrong. It could be my mom brain failing me. But from this one, I want to tackle this design. So it is an all over texture, but it's not traditional cables. It is called the Haley Genzer. I can't Scandinavian language. Yeah, I probably can't even say Genzer right. I don't know. I'm really not good at speaking other languages or attempting to pronounce them. But this is more of like an oversized fit, so I hope I have enough yarn. I have the right weight, so it's using double Sunday held with a strand of tin silk mohair on 5.5mm needles. This Cascade yarn is worsted weight. I think I should be able to get pretty close to gauge. I think. I mean, I haven't tried it, but I'll make it work. I am no longer afraid of not hitting gauge. I will make it work. Although this one being a pattern, like stitch pattern design, That's gonna involve some extra mind power if I had to rework anything, in which case I'd buy a different yarn. Because that's just too much work to, like, I'm not gonna redo this design. So when I look at this, sorry, I'm not staring at the camera right now because I've been looking at this picture. I think it looks like hot air balloons or beach balls, which I think is just really cool. Yeah, so I started to read the pattern for it though, and I kind of was like, what? So a note on patterns that are in booklets or magazines, because there is a limitation of space, so there's not as much explanation like there is on, say, like indie patterns. So, you know, some of the extra details that you might have in an indie pattern aren't going to be in a booklet or magazine because they just don't have the space to add that much. There is a chart though, so that's good. I appreciate that there is a chart. So, but this is going to be one of those projects that I'm gonna have to be alone, no distractions, get it started, and I don't even know if it's going to be a TV knit for me. It might be a when I'm alone while Darcy's sleeping knit. But that is something I will tackle like much later in the year because I've got plenty of other things to work on before then. Yeah. Oh, should I show you the little preview at the end of what's in this one? Oh, that's all blurry. You know what? I'll put in the extra footage. And then this one, I haven't actually picked out any patterns yet from this one, but excited to have these Santa's Garn booklets. And I also picked up an older issue of this pom-pom because I'm very curious about the cover design. Not because I want to wear it. I just want to learn this technique and make it. So the knitting technique used to make this, where's the page? Oh, there it is. It's called entrelac. The pattern itself is called Lucky Pieces, but it kind of looks like a quilt, and you've got pieces woven together. It just looks really cool. I mean, it could be something that drives me absolutely crazy, or it could be something totally fun to do. I don't know. Not a this year thing. That's gonna be I don't know when actually. And the last thing I picked up at Urban Yarns, it's another yarn that's been on my radar. Well, actually hasn't been on my radar for too long, but I was on the website Yarn Canada, which is one of the online places I order my yarn. I discovered that Cascade has this yarn called Ecological Wool. And it's an undyed Peruvian Highland wool in a bulky weight. But looking at it online, I wasn't entirely sure about the color or the feel of it. Obviously, you can't feel yarn online. And I just wasn't sure if it was going to be soft enough for me. So I was very happy to find that Urban Yarns carried this yarn, because I had done a search and it didn't come up online. So I think maybe it's one of those things that they carry, but it just wasn't on the website at the time, or for whatever reason they just don't put that one on the website. But this color, 8016, it probably has a name. I can't remember. But it's very similar to the fisherman's wool. But you can obviously see that it's a bulkier weight. And when I saw it on the shelf, like it was on a shelf at the very bottom, like nearly on the floor, and I was like, oh. And then put my hand down to pick it up, and I was like, oh. So yeah, I mean, it's not like the softest thing I have ever felt, but it was softer than I was expecting it to be. So, because for some reason I had in my mind that this undyed wool would just be like really rustic. But it is not. It is like quite cozy. And I purchased this to make the Levitate wrap by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which came out as part of the Isaiah Breeze collection, if I recall correctly. The Levitate wrap looks like this really cozy, oversized, I think it is drop shoulder. I think. Anyways, oversized wrap cardigan with a little tie on the side. I know I've said I'm kind of going away from oversized items, but I saw that design, and I felt like I needed it. Because at home, I've been wearing this kind of like really gross, very well worn, kind of like Sherpa fleece style zip up sweater that I bought from Uniqlo a long time ago. And it's gotten to the point where like I can't even wear it out of the house anymore because I'm kind of embarrassed about the state of it. It's strictly an indoor garment now. So I would like to make a nicer cozy garment that I can throw in at home, but also should I need to leave the house and I don't want to change my outfit, you know, the Levitate wrap is something I'm hoping will fulfill that and more, because I think it's just a bit more elevated. It could be dressed up, dressed down. So that is actually going to be my next cast on. Once I am done my Noelle cardigan, the Levitate wrap is what I'm working on next. And I'm kind of excited because it's potentially going to be like a yarn chicken challenge, because for the smallest size, the yarn requirements, if I recall correctly, but I am known to misread patterns and, you know, not buy the correct amount of yarn, like my Chantilly cardigan. But I believe it said 850 meters is required for the smallest size. And between the two of these that I bought, I would have 874 meters. So I would have 24 meters extra, which, you know, I got a swatch. And who knows how accurate the pattern is. I could possibly be using the swatch into the garment itself. But I didn't want to buy a third one because then I would have all this extra yarn, and then I have to think up what to make with it. And I'm not really the type that likes extra yarn from a project. I don't like building up like a scrap stash. I really like not having like barely anything after the end of a project if I can help it. And just the thrill of yarn chicken kind of excites me. Some people, maybe that stresses you out, but for me, I'm like, oh, let's see if I can get this out without buying more yarn, or if I can do this without having to wind up another cake. Just, yeah. Oh, the thrills of knitting. That is all that happened in the month of April. I hope I lied. That is not all that happened in the month of April. I have one more acquisition. And it's the one that I actually used my birthday money on. So my mother-in-law is so sweet. Every year, like pretty close to every year that I have been with my husband, like even before we were married, she sends me birthday money. And, you know, she, of course, this year sent me birthday money again. And I used it towards a new book. Not more yarn, a new book. But this one, guys. This one has been advertised a lot from Lina, because it's through the Lina publishing house. Moosh and Friends. Is that how you pronounce it? There's no little accent aigu on the E, so I don't know if you pronounce it Mouche or... Anyways, someone correct me in the comments if you know. I was so curious about this particular book because it says here, Cynthia's toy making process is unique and totally seamless. No need to assemble those tiny parts. Seamless knit animals? Yes, so this is something I'm quite excited to try. I don't know exactly which animal I'm going to do. The cover does not show all the animals that are included in the book. I haven't really had a chance to sit and look in detail, like very thoroughly, at all the animals, but I am leaning towards one of the birds because Darcy doesn't have too many birds made from me. If I can find it. Oh my god, the pig's name is Alphonse. Of course. Nana. Is Nana a goose or a duck? I'm gonna guess some sort of duck. But it's so cute. There's Nana. Yeah, so I need to figure out what kind of yarn I need for this and everything still. Like, I haven't even read that. But potentially I need to figure that out soon, because if I lose yarn chicken on the panda, I don't want to order just one more ball of that yarn. I'll go ahead and order yarn for an animal for this because of shipping, whatever. Because I don't think I can buy that stonewash yarn in person. I haven't seen it at any of the shops here in Vancouver. So yeah, I think I'll have to order it online. Okay, that is finally the end of everything April. All my acquisitions. Let's look at the floor one more time. Yes, it's just a big mess down there now. Let's get this stuff off me. Alright guys, I know that was a lot, a little bit scattered. I feel a bit out of practice, even though it's been my usual length of time in between podcast episodes, but thank you for hanging out with me, letting me show and share everything that happened this month. And if you want to see kind of more regular updates, check me out on Instagram. I do post a little bit more regularly on there, as well as my stories. But thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And until next time, happy knitting. Bye.